Hello, everyone out there, and welcome back to my channel. And so today I want to go right into the message that God gave me on today. And the title of my message is The God That Always Hears. And so I just want to say, first of all, that sometimes do it seem like that God is not concerned about you or that he don't want to hear about what's going on in your life, for us what's going on in your life daily, you know, versus other people, because sometimes it seems like other people are more important to him than you. Some people actually feel like that, but that's just simply not true because what moves God to come near to you is faith. You have to have faith in him and you have to believe because the word tells us in Hebrews 11 and 6, it says that without faith it's impossible to please him because he that cometh to him must believe that he is and that he is also the rewarder of those that diligently seek him. And so God is not a respecter of person. God is not like us. But it's faith that moves God to come near to you. And see, also, a lot of times, people feel like, they pray to God about different things. And then it seems like this God is just gone on vacation. It seems like God is so far from them or that he did not hear them. When that is, God always hears us. He might not answer, but God is always listening. He's always listening. You know, because as I said, you have to have faith. Because, in the in the book of Mark, the 11th chapter and the 24th verse, it says that whatsoever you desire when you pray, believe that you receive it and you shall have it. But also at the same time, I want to say you have to pray according to God's will because God is not going to give you something that's outside of his will. And whether he answers, quickly or whether God takes a long time, you have to believe what you prayed about. Just because God is not answering right away does not mean that he did not hear you. And so I want to read about Daniel. I want to go to the book of Daniel, the 10th chapter, because Daniel prayed about a situation. He prayed and fasted, and he did not get an answer right away, but God did answer. And so I want to read a little bit about him. In the 10th chapter of Daniel, I want to read that 7 through the 13th verse. And for anyone that wants to follow along with me when I'm reading, I read out of the King James Version. So let me go to the book of Daniel, the 10th chapter. And I said the 7th through 13th verse. I thought I had this page marked, but I hadn't even marked it down. And it says, and I, Daniel, saw the vision. And so after he had prayed and fasted, and then God showed, he suddenly showed him a vision. And this is what he saw. It says, and Daniel alone saw a vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone, and I saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. Yet heard I a voice of his words, and when I heard the voice of his words, then was I in a deep sleep on my face, and my face toward the ground. And behold, an hand touched me, which set me upon my knees, and upon the palms of my hands. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright, for unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken a word unto me, I stood trembling. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard. They were heard, and I am come for thy words. And so God heard him the very first time he prayed. And it says in the 13th verse, it says, But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. And so it was a spiritual fight to get that word to come through to Daniel. There was a fight that was not in the natural, it was spiritual. It was in the spirit. But God did answer Daniel. But as the word said, it took 21 days, but the answer came through. And so also in 1 Peter 3 and 12, it says the eyes, it say, let me go to 1 Peter 3 and 12. First Peter 3 and 12. And it says, For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayers. But the face of the Lord is against them that do evil. And so God, he hears our prayers. And then also I want to go to Isaiah 65 and 24. And it says, It shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer. And it says, While they are yet speaking, I will hear. So as I said, God, he hears us. He hears us. And it just made me think about, have you ever had a conversation with somebody and y'all in a private setting, and then you go to another place and God has a person there, because it seemed like God was eavesdropping on your conversation, and then God has a person at a total another location. Just say you don't went to another, just say you was at home, then you go to church, and then God had somebody there to confirm what you was talking about in secret. And you know without a doubt that this is God, because there's no way they could have knew what you was talking about. And see, God does that a lot of times. God done that so many times to me. It's just you talking to somebody in secret, and then God lets you know that he heard you, what you was saying, because he would have what you was saying to that person, he would have somebody else speak it out their mouth, perhaps your pastor. Sometimes you can go to church and your pastor will talk about what you was talking about in private. And sometimes, something that you talk in private to God about. But God is just amazing like that. I mean, when I say I have a lot of testimonies like that where God then confirmed stuff that I was talking about with somebody else, I think it's totally amazing. I could never, it's just, you just in awe of God. Just to know that God, he hears you. That's just so touching to me. And see, God, I just was thinking about, and another thing I was thinking about too, when he says before you speak, He will hear you. Sometimes you be thinking about stuff in your heart, and you haven't told anybody, and God will manifest that thing. For instance, I remember I had made a vow. I wanted to pay this money. I made a vow to pay this money out, and at the time I wanted a purse. I wanted to give me a nice purse, but I wanted to wait until I paid the vow. And so what happened was my birthday came up, and so I went to my cousin's house, and my cousin, she hands me this bag, and it's a Coach bag, and this girl actually had went and got me a purse, and I knew it was, even though she bought the purse, I knew it was God answering my prayer. I just felt like God said, you didn't have to wait to get the purse. I'm going to give you this purse now. Ooh, that just touched my heart in a deep way. I mean, God done so many. I have so many testimonies of what God has done. I remember one time, my finances was tight, and I was thinking, after I pay all my bills, I'm not going to have that much left at all. I'm going to have probably $64 or something like that. But when I was thinking that very same week, somebody gave me $200. I think I might have had about $300 that week that came in after I had that thought. And so God, like when he say he'll supply all your needs, God will supply all your needs. And then I remember another time, we was giving gloves and stuff out at our church, and my money was a little tight. And I remember I was at the store and I was looking at the gloves and stuff, but I was like, I want to have some more money. And when I got home, somebody had sent me $100 in my mailbox. I mean, God is just, like I said, God is awesome. A lot of times God will answer our thoughts when we thinking about things. And I'm sure some of you all can attest to what I'm saying as well. But just God is just awesome like that. And so, I wanted to read, about, a couple of people that God, he answered their prayer. When they cried out to him, I thought about King Hezekiah, because Hezekiah had fell sick and he was about to die. The prophet had told him that he was to get his house in order because he was about to die. And so King Hezekiah began to cry out to God, and God extended his life. He gave him 15 more years. And so I want to go to 2 Kings. I want to read the 19th chapter, the 1st through the 6th verse. 2 Kings, the 19th chapter. And it says, and it came to pass when King Hezekiah heard it, that he rent his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth and went into the house of the Lord. And he sent, that ain't what I want to read. Let me find the right scripture that I want to read. I'm going too far back. I'm reading about him with the king of Assyria. I meant to read the 20th chapter, the 1st through the 6th verse. Because in the previous chapter, it was talking about the king of Assyria. This king of Assyria had came against King Hezekiah. He came against the children of Israel. But that ain't what I wanted to read. I want to read the 20th chapter, 1st through the 6th verse. And it says, in those days was Hezekiah sick unto death. And the prophet Isaiah, the son of Amos, came to him and said unto him, thus said the Lord, set thy house in order, for thou shalt die and not live. Then he turned his face to the wall and prayed unto the Lord, saying, I beseech thee, O Lord, remember now how I have waited before thee in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight. And Hezekiah wept sore. And so he cried out to God, and he reminded God how he had lived upright before God. He had lived a righteous life. And so God changed his mind. He didn't really change his mind, but he gave him an extension on his life. Because eventually he did die. But it says in that fourth verse, it says, and it came to pass it says, afore Isaiah was gone out into the middle court, that the word of the Lord came to him, saying, turn again and tell Hezekiah, the captain of my people, thus said the Lord, the God of David thy father, I have heard thy prayer, I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will heal thee on the third day. Thou shalt go up into the house of the Lord. And I will add unto thy days 15 years, and I will deliver thee and this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria. And I will defend this city for my own sake and for my servant David's sake. And so, as I said, God, he answers prayer. He will answer your prayer. And so also in the book of Acts, I want to read about Peter, because Peter was thrown in jail because he was a disciple of Jesus and he had been spreading the gospel. But the king Herod, they didn't like that, because the Jewish people, they didn't believe in Jesus. And so he had him thrown in jail. But God delivered him, because the people of the city, the church, they began to intercede for Peter. And then God delivered him out of the jail. But the story is pretty funny, though, because they throw him in jail and then they began to intercede for Peter. And then God sent the angel, and the angel, I'm going to read a little bit about Peter. In the 12th chapter, I want to read the 11th through the 16th verse. But leading up to that, they put Peter in jail, and they surrounded him with so many. He was surrounded by soldiers, but that didn't stop God from delivering him. It says Peter was asleep, so Peter was calm. But the angel came and delivered him, and Peter thought he was seeing a vision. Peter didn't even know. It didn't even seem real to Peter that the angel had delivered him. But then finally he realized that he was out of the jail. I guess he thought he was sleepwalking. And so I want to read about Peter. It's Acts, the 12th chapter. The 12th chapter, 11 through the 16th verse, and it says, and when Peter was come to himself, he said, now I know of a surety that the Lord hath sent his angel and have delivered me out of the hand of Herod, and from all the expectation of the people of the Jews. And when he had considered the thing, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. So in the midst of them praying, God had already answered. And it says, and as Peter knocked at the door of the gate, a damsel came to hearken, named Rhoda. And when she knew Peter's voice, she opened out not the gate for gladness, but ran in and told how Peter stood before the gate. And they said unto her, thou art mad. But she constantly affirmed that it was even so. Then said they, it is his angel. So they ain't even believe that Peter was at the door, because they knew that he was in jail. But Peter continued knocking, and when they had opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. You ever prayed something, then you shocked when you get the answer? That's what was happening to them in this story. But God answered the prayer faster than they thought he would. So as I said, you have to believe that God will answer your prayer. And this is just a short message just to encourage you to continue to pray. Continue to pray. Because in Luke 18:1, it says, men ought to always pray and not faint. And then in 1 Thessalonians 5:17, it says that we are to pray without ceasing. So continue to pray and don't give up. And don't give up. Amen. Bye bye for now.